Hey, good people, how you doing? David Taub here, co-creator, nextlevelguitar.com. Hope all's going well, and hope your guitar journeys are going famously. Hope you're enjoying those guitars and honing your skills, refining your art, and enjoying playing and creating music, right? And I have another FAQ video for you today. This is we're into March now. Holy cow, this year's going by fast already. March 2019, I believe this is number 4. And this is where we answer email questions, YouTube questions, viewer questions. And let me tell you, man, the questions continue to come in and they are so awesome. And I so appreciate everyone participating in this. And, it's a great forum because lots of questions that you're asking, other people want to know the answers to. The emails that I'm getting back, everyone seems to be really enjoying these FAQ videos. So thank you so much for your support and watching. And if you subscribe to the channel, that's awesome too. Like, share the video. Subscribing really helps us to keep the content coming. And we will keep the dialogue going. If you have questions, please, you can put them in the YouTube description box below. Or if you feel more comfortable, email them to me. Just put question for David in the subject line of the email and email it to me at thenextlevelguitar@yahoo.com. And stay tuned because in the end of the video, we're going to give away another Next Level Guitar t-shirt, right? Check it out, right? We got double-sided. And like in all these FAQ videos, we just pick a random winner from the questions that we receive that we do in that particular video. And I email them, get the shipping information, see what size you are, and we send you some t-shirt. I'm throwing some other swag in the box too. Congratulations to the past winners. And some people have been asking me about my original record with my band, my original band Mindcell. Our debut record is going to be coming out soon. They asked me about the progress of it. I have about a third of it already done in the can. And I'm going back in the studio in a few weeks now. We're trying to get more songs done. So we're changing the numbers of songs. We're trying to finish up all the pre-production on that and then get the sessions scheduled. So hopefully in another 3 weeks, which would be early April, I'll get back in the studio and finish the rest of the songs recorded and get it out quick. I'm real excited, but I'm gonna put out one of the songs soon and I'm going to send it to everybody because I want your opinions on it. I am really stoked. I think it's some of the best music I've ever written and I can't wait for you to hear it. David N. from Los Angeles, California. He says, dumb newbie question. First of all, there are no dumb questions, right? Dumb newbie question probably, but doesn't matter if I practice with a completely clean tone. Is it okay to practice with some distortion or reverb, etc.? Thanks. David, you know what? I think you should practice with whatever motivates and empowers you about the guitar. If you like a really clean tone, definitely throw some reverb on there. This way it's not so dry sounding, because most of us are practicing in our room, so that reverb, and it does help a little bit with the tone, with the sustain, and it sounds really good and empowering. You want to play what's inspiring and empowering. And if you want to practice with distortion, go ahead and do that. The only thing I would say is, don't have it so where the distortion is like covering up sloppy playing or something like that, because you want to be sure and play, get to playing cleaned. I mean clean, not clean tone, but clean as far as not sloppy, right? So, certainly though, you could do both. Sometimes do some clean stuff with reverb. Beautiful clean tones are awesome, and use distortion. Again, whatever motivates and empowers you about the guitar, and that's going to make you pick it up and play it. Go for it. Got a question from Stephen L. Steve asks, I've been learning the guitar for about 5 months now and making good progress. My biggest stumbling block is the F chord. It just doesn't sound good. How can I get more proficient with this chord? Thanks, Steve. Steve, the F chord is a chord that everybody struggles with at first, so you are not alone. So don't beat yourself up. In fact, I have recently posted 2 new lessons on getting comfortable with the F chord, with practice exercises, but using a few other chords as like stepping stones to the F chord. In those lessons, we use like a D minor 7th chord, and also F major 7. We use as like a substitute for the F chord. And these are ways I teach in those how you can use those chords to work on the stretch and the bar finger, because those are the 2 things you need in order to play that F chord, right? So I'll put links to those in the description box below, both those lessons. So be sure you watch those, because those lessons, first of all, that substituting the F major 7, and I talk all about it in the lesson, that's great because it will work on your stretch, plus it will then allow you to play songs that have the F chord in them. Because until now, right, you're probably, when you want to play a song that has an F chord in it, you're probably just throwing that song to the side, right? F chord, right? Probably say a few colorful metaphors, right? Now you won't have to do that. You can substitute F major 7 for it. So that worked the stretch. And then the D minor 7 starts to work on that bar finger, where you have to bar across multiple strings at once and sound multiple notes cleanly. And that gives you the practice with that. So those 2 lessons are great. Watch those and let us know how you're doing. A YouTube question, rather a YouTube statement from Charlie G said, "You are the Yoda of guitar playing, Dave. Much love from London."
Help you again? Yes.
Charlie G, man, thank you so much for your kind words. Really appreciate that, and greetings from the USA. And I just wanted to give you a shout out. You didn't ask a question, but you said something very nice. And I just want to let you know that I appreciate that. And I get all kinds of emails and comments, and they are all so awesome. And people are so kind, and it really, really makes me feel good. I read all of them, and I appreciate it so much. I appreciate people taking time out of their day to write in and say nice things. And it's awesome, and it's just another reason that keeps me keep doing what I'm doing. And I just want to take a second and thank everyone for their support and their kind words. And Charlie G, you're the man. Thank you. Rock on. Steve W asks, "Hi Dave, love the lessons. I'm still having lots of trouble with noise from the guitar while I pick. I palm unit a lot, but I still get a lot of noise. On string noise, is there a few different practice techniques I can do to help get better at keeping my guitar quiet?" Great question, Steve, and a lot of guitar players struggle with string noise. I know I struggled with it until I started building into my playing a two-handed muting technique, okay? This is critical. You know, when you're playing guitar and you're doing things like bending strings, or you're running around on a neck and moving quickly, or even playing multiple notes on adjacent strings, you're gonna be hitting those other strings. And that's going to create noise, and at first a lot of noise. So you have to learn some techniques to keep the guitar quiet. What works for me is a two-handed muting technique where I'm using both hands, pick hand and fret hand, to mute out all the notes that you are not playing. Right? That's critical. Let me say that again. You have to mute out all the notes that you are not playing, because you only want the note that you are playing to ring out. So basically think of it like this. 6 strings, if you're playing a 6 string, you have to mute out all 6 strings except the 1 string or 2 strings if you're just, you know, playing 1 note or 2 notes. Let's just stick with 1 note. Mute out all the other strings that you're not playing. How do you do that? Well, like you said, you're palm muting, right? You lay the palm of your hand on right on the guitar, right on the strings, and that mutes out, you know, most of the lower strings, right? Depending on where you want to play, right on the bridge, right on the strings. Okay, so that's what we'll use to mute out the lower strings, and then the higher strings I mute with my first finger by always having it laying flat on a little bit of an angle, right? So if you watch me play a little bit, right? For instance, I'm vibratoing this note. But if you notice, this first finger is muting all the high strings. I only want to ring out the G string. Right? That's the only note I want to hear. So I'm muting the higher strings with this first finger and all the lower strings with the palm. So watch a little bit as I play, and you'll never see this first finger come off the strings. It's always muting. It's always just lightly. I'm not pressing down, fretting any notes, just lightly touching the strings to mute those high strings while this mutes the low strings. The two hands work in combination. I'll play a little bit, notice. Example, I wanted to do a lot of different techniques. I was playing a little bit aggressive. I was bending strings, half steps, whole steps, hitting into other strings, big wide vibrato. I was sliding on the neck because I wanted you to hear the cleanliness of the playing. I was descending down the strings. I changed pickups even. I did some faster legato stuff with some stops. So again, you could hear that technique all during every bit of that. I was using two-handed string muting. I'm not thinking about it, it's just built into my playing, and it will be built into yours too. You just have to practice it to where it becomes automatic. My first finger is just kind of sliding on the strings, muting them. And my fret hand, my pick hand, never leaves. I don't come off. So this is something that has to be developed over time, and it feels very weird at first, but if you practice it, eventually it becomes automatic and becomes built into your technique. So what you could do at first is just practice it with like your basic finger exercises. Like if you do a 1, 2, 3, 4 pattern, take it up all the strings. You don't have to go fast because you just want to basically listen for cleanliness. The hammers. But it's forcing to mute the strings. So if you just keep practicing that, practice it with your scales. Right? And eventually you will get it. And like I said, you have to give it some time because this is going to feel very foreign at first, but it's something you have to do. I have an extensive lesson with close-ups on this two-handed muting technique on my website at nextlevelguitar.com. All right, if you're not a site member, that's fine. There's a 3-day pass on the homepage. So just grab the 3-day pass. We don't ask for a credit card or anything. Just sign up. We send you a username and password. It's totally free. I'll put a link to where that lesson is specifically on the site. I'll put a link to it below. So check out that lesson because it gets into more of the technique and again, a lot of the close-ups, and that's what you really have to do to get rid of all this string noise. And hey, if you'd like a free video lesson to kind of help you along in your lead guitar journey where I go over some scales and some tons of easy techniques that you can incorporate into your playing, maybe bring a little spice into your guitar playing, right? Kind of change things up a bit. Click on that link below. I'll send you a free video lesson and I'll send you my killer blues rock ebook where I go over all kinds of scales. There's tons and tons of scale diagrams, soloing strategies, lessons. It's a killer reference guide you'll use throughout your guitar journey. I'll send it to you for free. Just click on that link below. Here's another YouTube question from AutoCrow. And AutoCrow says, I love home recording and have been doing it for years. I've often wondered how much cheating goes on in a real recording studio, like moving individual notes around to improve timing, that kind of thing. That's a really good question, you know, and it really makes you think about, you know, technology and the way things are now, because the technology is just so incredible versus how they were many years ago. And yeah, sometimes when you're in the studio, if there's a certain note that's a little bit off, you can pull it, you know, vocally, you can even pull it down a little bit. And little tweaks like that, I think, go on a lot, and that's okay, as opposed to, you know, just throwing auto-tune over the whole thing and making up for a big, you know, singing out of key. And, you know, I'm not a huge fan of auto-tune. And it puts a certain sound on the recording, right? And again, that's not my cup of tea. If you like it, that's fine. But I think more and more there is more fixing going on in the studios and more reliance on technology and less on, you know, the playing end of it. And I think that's kind of a bummer. But, you know, again, you're going into the studio and creating, that's your thing, and you have to be comfortable with it. And to further expand on that answer, I wanted to ask someone who is doing recording every day in a professional studio. So I called up my buddy Ben Elliott, who is a producer engineer who owns Showplace Studios in New Jersey, and he's worked with some of the greatest musicians of all time. He's done projects with Eric Clapton and Keith Richards and Steve Miller, and the list goes on and on and on. And I asked him that question about fixing things in the studio and how much of that goes on with the work that he does. And he said, especially, you know, over the last few years, he's getting more and more of that kind of work where it's almost like 50%, 50-50, that he gets a lot of work where people will send him files and they'll ask him to fix certain things. Now, it might be small things, like he said. Oftentimes it's a lot to do with the drums. Drums are very hard to capture at home, you know, unless you have, you know, lots of really good microphones and, you know, you spend a lot of time miking each, you know, the kit up and the cymbals and the overheads, and you have to have room for that and a good sounding room. And, you know, so it's really hard to get great sounding drums. So a lot of times, you know, he'll get recordings in Alaska, you know, it's just missing a little something to make it sound a little bit more professional. And it might just be, you know, about EQing or, you know, adding compression or something like that. Or the project might need a little work in the mixing department to make it sound a little bit more professionally recorded wise. The other thing, though, he does get work in where where the drums, because they're so hard to record at home, sometimes it's beyond the level of, okay, we're just going to have to compress a drum or two, or we're going to have to, EQ them. They might have to replace the snare or the kick with samples and lay them on top. Then you're getting into more major surgery, right? But he says that, a lot of his work now is about, repairing or making it sound, getting it to the next level. And if you want to learn more about Ben and his studio and all the work that he does, because you could send him your files, whatnot, I'll put a link right here to his studio, Showplace Studios. Check it out. This next question is from Mark, and it's a long question, but I think it's a really good question, so bear with me on this one. He asks, after many, many years, he's finally found himself in a good gigging band. It's been on his bucket list forever, but he wonders how to get gigs regularly. He's in kind of an interesting situation. He says he's played some really nice venues. He's done some pay-to-play gigs, and he's played for some benefits. And he says playing the small venues is fine, but the gigs are too far and few between. He's the newest member of the band. He's chomping at the bit to get out and play live. He doesn't care where. The other guys have been in several bands, but he seems like he's the only one busting his butt to find and get gigs. So he asks, what do you suggest, David? And then he says, I appreciate all that you're doing in Next Level Guitar, taking away some great ideas, watching your videos, taking your courses. Thank you so much, Mark. Mark, thanks for the question. I hear you and I could relate. And also congratulations on getting into that gigging band. And it sounds like you're playing some really good venues. So I have some suggestions for you. It's a common position that you're in. I've been in that position also, where you're the only one doing, all the work basically, as far as on the business end of getting the gigs, right? And in fact, I have a video that'll help you with that too. It's like a top 15 tips on how to keep your band going and whatnot. I'll put that video link in the description box below. Make sure and watch that. There's some really good tips in there. It's really hard to find the right people when you're playing. It's the biggest thing when you're looking to get into a band, I think, finding the right people where you're on the same page with, in this instance, gigging with. The bottom line is, you're doing most of the work busting your butt, and you're in a situation where you're the new guy, right? So here's a few things I suggest. You have a few choices. One, you could get in another band, get a second band going, and maybe between both bands, you'll play out more, right? A lot of work though, and then you have to juggle two bands, two set lists, right? Two different rehearsal times, conflicting with gigging schedules. A lot of people do it. It's possible. Another thing you could do is sit down with the guys and just have a talk about the business side of the band. I feel that's something that everybody has to participate in. It should be a consensus, and you should divide up the work. This person does the social media. This person does booking in these venues. This person does booking in these venues. This person gets, the posters and gets, sends out the emails and works the email list. This person does X, and S. It's a business, and that business side, when you're playing in a gigging, cover band, like where you're playing around like it sounds like you're doing, is almost as important as the playing side, right? Because you gotta play, you gotta get gigs. So you could sit down with everyone and just have a talk and see where they're at. One, they'll all agree you could divide it up, or two, they're like, no, this is what we're gonna do, and that will drive your decision. Then you'll have to be like, okay, well, it is what it is. We're just gonna be playing out once a month unless I work it and set everything up and make it happen. I've been in situations like that before, and I've tried to get the other people involved, and in the end, they just wanted to show up and play, but, I enjoyed it and whatnot, so I just did most of the legwork. So you might have to do most of the work. If you want to play out more, you're going to have to hustle and bust your butt and book the gigs. Something else you could do that I think is fair is you can say to the guys, hey, I have an idea. Just so, because of the amount of work, and you could, again, not be condescending, but say, everyone's aware of how much work it is to book bands and get shows. It's a lot, calling these venues and following it up and following up and sending out EPKs and following those up, and it's a lot of work. You could say, okay, in some of my bands, I've had this thing where the person that books the show gets 10% extra, right? So that person, it's a little extra incentive, money-wise, it just makes it a little easier to swallow. And I think that's fair because that person is doing a lot of the legwork, and time is money. So you could ask to set something up like that. But I would communicate and talk to the guys. Because you're the new guy, you can't be too forceful. You can't be too aggressive with it, but just kind of put the feelers out there. Getting gigs, there's other things you could do, like find other bands that are playing in your area, the scene. I'm sure there's other bands that are playing out a lot more. Go to their website and see all the venues they're playing at. write them all down. Mark down where they're playing, and then you can start contacting those venues, right? You might even have to do dual shows with other bands, because a lot of venues now, you know, they want 2-3 bands a night, because that's going to draw more people. So that's a way where you could find out where other venues in the genre of music that you're playing, where other bands, what other venues are booking. Best of luck. I hope those tips help. Watch that video below, because I have a lot more tips in there. Time to give away a Next Level Guitar t-shirt and some swag, and we chose a random question from this video session, and the winner is David N from Los Angeles. David asked the question about, does it matter to practice with a clean or distorted tone? So David, congratulations. I will be sending you an email to get your shipping information, and we'll get you that t-shirt. I want to thank you all once again for sending in your questions. They are awesome. Had a lot of fun. Hope you enjoyed this. Please remember to subscribe to the channel. Subscribing really helps us to keep bringing the content. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Leave your comments below. Get your questions in. Put question for David in the subject line and email it to us at thenextlevelguitar@yahoo.com. And if you want a video lesson on some killer soloing techniques, right, paired with a killer ebook, click that link below, send it to you for free. Stay tuned, lots more lessons and content and FAQ videos coming. Keep the questions coming. I'm David Taub, co-creator of Next Level Guitar. You're the good people. Take care, and remember, your guitar playing is an evolution. Rock on.